What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today is going to be day one of the new Ferrari update here in the Crew Motorfest, and with that we are going to have the brand new summit. That is going to be the Supercars here, giving us the Supercar kit, matching the Supercar summit, which is also Supercars. Kind of getting a bit super here, am I right? But we're going to have the Ferrari F12 there in gold, 100,000 bucks and 100,000 XP. The next summit, though, is going to have the Italia tire, which I gotta admit looks pretty dope. We have the FXXK there in gold, $100,000 again, then 100,000 XP. We can also look at this one, which is most likely going to be based on the F80. I wonder why. I wonder why. We're then going to have the next summit here, which is going to have the Ultimate Nitro. No, this is not going to be a new Nitro. They are still doing the old Platinum rewards. I guess you could say the old rewards. I keep saying Platinum because my brain is Platinumized at this point. This is going to be an old Crew 2 item, though, and the next summit after that is also going to, once again, be an old item from the Crew 2. Honestly, I really think they need to change this, but with the changes to the summit, I don't know if that's going to happen. The Ferrari at the end of the month is going to be pretty nice looking. I don't know if anybody can make that exact livery. Let me know in the comments below. But the one thing about the summit that you're probably going to notice right off the bat is now Platinum is top 15,000. The reason why they probably did this is a lot of players are probably getting annoyed about it, and we all do know that there's a lot of people that want to get in Platinum. So do let me know if you guys think this is good or bad. I will talk about this more in an upcoming video on Sunday. But I am curious to know your thoughts. I would say this is probably going to make the summit a lot easier for many people, and then at least a lot of people who are not going to be all that great at racing, or maybe they're trying to get the rewards, at least they are now going to be able to. But I would probably say you could probably get in Platinum much easier now than you could before. With all of that being said, we're then going to have mainly Street Tier 2 events here with a few Hypercar events. We're then going to have Speedtrap and also 2 Slaloms. I gotta say right off the bat, guys, this summit was honestly fairly simple. We're also then going to have the Speedtrap here, which I did want to talk about. For this, I did end up using the Laferrari, which is pretty much your only option on this one if you're looking to get a higher time on it. Even the Enzo's decent. I did end up doing something a bit different, though. I threw on a Chemist set to see how it would do on this, a Pure and Frenetic. Got around 290. You could probably get like 295-ish. I just wasn't really trying to do that great. I'm like, whatever, I'll take the 290 miles an hour. For both of these slaloms, though, one thing I want to point out, guys, on both of these, this goes for both of them. I did want to say that because people might be confused. The first one here is going to be no restriction. I used a motocross bike. For this, I did end up doing something a tad different. I normally use skilled on every part with no score breakers, but I was like, you know what, let me try to do what I did last week and run 3 score breaker parts. All 7 parts are going to have skilled, so as long as you have 3 score breakers, it's basically a 50% boost on your score. For this, I got 156,000 with the Ferrari F40. The other one, I got 154,000 using a motocross bike. So if you use something like a Street Tier 2, you could probably get more points on this, but again, you do not have to have a full score breaker set to do this, or at least be good at it, which I would say is a big plus there. For the events, though, the first one here is going to be a vehicle-owned Street Tier 2 race, and you're also going to be able to use the new GTO in the game, guys. I gotta admit, this car does honestly feel very good. I do like this thing a lot. I had a great time in this event. I actually think I did fairly decent in it, especially not really trying that hard and kind of just messing around. I got 2 minutes and 51 seconds. This car is going to feel stabilized, and honestly, the events in this summit aren't going to be that difficult. The big thing is to probably run them a few times because they are going to be new races. I think they are anyway, because I have not done any of these yet, unless I'm losing my mind, which could be something. But I would say a lot of people are probably going to be a bit new to these events, so I would recommend probably going through them a few times, and then boom, you'll most likely be a tad more used to it. For the Street Tier 2 event, this is going to be in the F40. Everybody at this point does know exactly what this car is, so I'd recommend just trying this thing out. I did not run any pro settings on it, guys. I'm also using a buck set on all the events where you have to use a set on them, so I'm going to be slower regardless of what I do. Got around 3 minutes and 20 seconds with the F40. That car is great, and I can honestly see it. For the other vehicle-owned event, though, in this one, guys, you're actually not going to use the GTO. Instead, you are going to use the F50. This car also feels decent, but I kind of like the way the GTO feels. Again, that's probably just a preference thing, but overall, though, this car is fairly decent. Again, practicing on these tracks is probably going to be the biggest thing, and I would say the F50 is honestly pretty decent. We're then going to have a hypercar race in the Enzo Ferrari. This is probably the one time you are most likely going to use this car, so I would recommend enjoying it. I got around 4 minutes and 30 seconds on it. Again, not running any pro settings on my vehicle, or a part set can definitely make you slower, but I gotta admit it does kind of make these summits a tad more entertaining and most likely gets me into them more. The biggest thing I would say again, guys, is honestly try to practice with some of these cars if you don't use them. I think that's one reason why they use some of these odd cars in some of these summits, because most players probably don't even run them, so at least it gives you a reason to do it. For the next vehicle alone, though, you're also then going to have to use a different car, which is the Laferrari. Personally, this car also feels pretty dang well having base pro settings on and also fair PvP parts, aka basically I think it's like all purple or all green or something like that. I don't really know. But either way, though, this car is going to feel pretty good. The big thing is keeping your speed up and watching the corners as well. The final event here is going to be a Street Tier 2 Ferrari race. You could pick your choice. I did end up using the F50 here. I would probably say maybe the F40 is better. I'm going to guess and say that it is, probably by a little bit, but I kind of ran this and went, I'm okay with that. Could I do better? Could I be faster? Well, yeah, if I was running a chemist set, without a doubt, because these longer highway events, you definitely have a lot more room to be faster, but if you're not running a chemist, then you are automatically going to be slower. Overall, though, the F50 and F40 should be a great choice, and that will basically do it for that one. Overall, guys, I would like to know your thoughts on this week's summit. I would say it is probably going to be decently simple. A lot of players are probably going to log on and go top 15,000. That's insane. I am, again, curious to know your thoughts on that, guys. You can get the Supercar kit. Nothing too insanely crazy with this one, but again, let me know your thoughts. But anyway, let's jump right into this one.